GoDaddy has created a brand new position, the Senior Premium Domain Name Consultant, and Jebidiah Burnett is the fantastic individual filling that role, normalizing aftermarket domains being presented to end users. Hear how this is strategic, not only for GoDaddy, but for the entire domain industry, that rising tides that will lift all boats. Also, hear Jebidiah's thoughts on the market in general and what they could mean for you. First, serious about online trading? Secure your funds, keep your merchandise safe, and use a company that keeps the buyer and seller protected the whole way through. That's escrow.com. Payments you can trust.
FD was built by domain investors to increase your inquiries, sales, and profit. Forget spreadsheets and archived emails. Manage your entire investment portfolio in one place using a secure and completely confidential platform. Learn more at FT.com. That's EFTY, FT.com. Hey, Sherpa Network, welcome to the show. Today, you might not recognize him, but this is Jebidiah Burnett with all his hair. Jebidiah, welcome to your new role at GoDaddy. Love the shirt. GoDaddy's always got some sweet swag. So you are now Senior Premium Domain Consultant at GoDaddy. And besides the fact that we absolutely love your insights and want to hear your thoughts on the market in general, we really want to have you on because GoDaddy is making a step here, a statement, and normalizing the idea of aftermarket domains being presented to the right buyer, to end user buyers. This is a new concept, and I believe, we all believe, will become the new norm. So Andrew Rosener is on here as CEO of Media Options and as someone interested in seeing this change in the approach to domain name sales. So welcome, both of you. Hello.
Hello.
Drew, you gonna grow your hair out like Jebidiah?
You know what? I really actually need a shave because we have some people coming over for dinner tonight, but I just literally haven't found the time to shave, sleep, or pretty much do anything these days.
Well, you found time for Jebidiah.
Yeah, I found time for my 9th cup of coffee today. Yeah.
Especially funny because here in Arizona, it's only 8:30 a.m.
Yeah.
I am not on my 9th cup of coffee, nor will I be at any point today. So, Jebidiah, what's it like working for GoDaddy is, I consider, my alma mater. I had 7 wonderful years there. I know a lot's changed since I left in 2012. But what's it like for you? You work from home or in the Seattle office or both?
I'm both. I'm based out of the Kirkland office here in Seattle, Washington, or Kirkland, Washington. And then I do work from home often as well. So, but it's great. I'm very, very excited about the role that I have with GoDaddy. Bringing outbound sales to such a premium quality of domain status or domain portfolio makes me ecstatic. I'm super excited about it. Not only can I work with just quality.com or .net, .org legacy domains, but I'll also have the opportunity to work with my passion as well, which is the updated TLDs as well. So I'm really excited about the move that GoDaddy has made and that I've made to GoDaddy. So
okay, I have to back you up for 1 second. Updated TLDs. I'm not sure that I've heard that before.
Drew, you were
You're not listening to your own show.
Yeah, no, Drew, when we did the West Coast Sherpa,
it makes me sad when I have to listen to a show that I'm not on. It makes me sad and jealous.
Aww. Do you need a tissue or another cup of coffee?
Yeah.
I always need another cup of coffee. Okay, so sorry. Yeah. So then give me the
This is a new terminology, and I think it's. Go ahead. You tell your story, Jebidiah.
Well, I use that term, and I use it. I think Mike Seiger sort of called me out a little bit on it, but I do use it to sort of let people know that it's not like new Gs or new TLDs. They have been around for about 4 or 5 years at this point. And they are not as old as the legacy TLDs like .com or .net or .org, but they are the next generation of what a domain can look like. So it's updated. That's all it is. It's nothing. They didn't reinvent the wheel. They didn't change much. It's still DNS. It's still a URL. It's updated. So that, again, going with the experiences that I've had and the opportunities that I've had with end users and investors with new TLDs or updated TLDs, I just found that was a better terminology for them.
Interesting.
And stopped calling them new or NG TLDs or acronyms that end users didn't really know or had never heard of. But if you can say updated extension or updated TLD, it tends to...
It pre-frames your sale. Yeah,
exactly.
It's brilliant psychology.
Right.
So Jebidiah, you are not selling like, Joe Schmo signs up at GoDaddy and lists their domain for sale. You're not selling that name for GoDaddy. Let's just back up a sec, give a little history to what you're selling.
Sure. So I'm handling what's called the name find portfolio, which is GoDaddy's acquired portfolio. And then I also handle the premium level updated extensions as well. So with our registry partners, their high quality domain names, I'll outbound broker those as well.
Okay.
So I don't do, I think when I was on the show last, I received quite a few inquiries after, hey, I have domain names on Afternic. Can you help me sell those? That's not my role. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to people about their portfolios and happy to do so at any time. But the way that the role sits right now does not include outbound brokering Afternic clients' domains.
So GoDaddy purchased a large portfolio of domains called the Name Find portfolio, and that is what you're outbound brokering. And
Correct.
then also
Correct.
Sometimes GoDaddy will have a partnership with, say, I'm trying to remember the one you said last time. What'd you sell in the Oh, it's not.
Well, that was a .co UK was the last time on the show. But I mean, like with .live or .online or .club or some of these the registry premium domains as well.
So a premium at .club is going to be like Vegas.club. So you might choose to do an outbound sales campaign for something very specific like that. That's super cool. Okay. And who do you where are you within the org structure of GoDaddy? Who works with
satellite? He's a satellite.
So, I fall under sort of the sales team at Afternic. Alan Shiflett, Dave Hegelson. I apologize, Dave, if I mispronounced your last name. But I sort of fall under that org. I am, again, the first official outbound consultant for GoDaddy. So it's sort of this unique, like Drew said, sort of satellite structure. I do run into people sometimes that don't know, like within the GoDaddy organization, where I fall in. So, but it's a unique role, but it's a very important role. So I'm fine being sort of a one-off in it. Obviously, the goal is to build the team and to continue the successes that we've had doing this. But the organizational chart, I'm a little offshoot of it right now.
And that, really speaks to their, really, I think, cutting edge in this mentality and this approach. And they're willing to be flexible and make it work, even though it's not already, traditional or typical. But I mean, I expect that this is going to become typical.
For who? For who? For who? What do you mean typical?
For whom? for I think for other registrars with large portfolios and perhaps someday, other entities who have large portfolios and are looking to divest them. Either they have a broker on retainer or it's just like having an attorney. Either you have an attorney on retainer or you have one in-house. What do you think, Jebidiah?
Well, I think that, GoDaddy has a portfolio that the world needs to participate in. It is, I believe no matter what the extension is, that a great domain name is a great domain name. And I'm still every day going through the portfolio, finding nuggets where I'm like, holy crap, somebody's got to know that this is available and, reach out on the name. I think it's the same thing with, what sort of Drew started his career with. He has a great portfolio, or had people who had great portfolios, and he brokered them. GoDaddy's doing the same thing now. They have a great portfolio that's in-house. We're brokering it. We're finding the end user buyers. We're perpetuating the market forward with price points and opportunities. And I think that it should be the norm that if you have great domain names, that you should be outbounding that name, that you should be trying to actively find a buyer. If you're not actively trying to, okay.
So, okay, I want to back up. So I agree with you 100%. I love to hear that sentiment. I think that, the normalization of the domain aftermarket and the sort of progressive approach of taking these domains. I mean, let's face it, we're not in a liquid market, all right? And so, a domain comes available for whatever reason, regardless of who the owner is. There's no real communication mechanism that the appropriate party who would actually want that name could even know about it, unless they've got a back order, unless they've got a monitor service, unless they're they've contacted somebody previously and said, let me know if anything changes. There's just no way of connecting the best properties with the best buyers. And that was the like, as you said, that was the opportunity I identified early on. I was like, all right, well, I'm good at sales. I want to create cash flow so that I can build our own portfolio. I'm going to go out and find their buyers and connect them with the sellers. And so I love that GoDaddy, as the biggest registrar in the world and one of the biggest portfolio owners in the world, is now taking that progressive approach to do exactly what you just said, which is, finding the perfect buyer for these names, big or small or medium. It doesn't matter if it's a 5,000. There's gems for $5,000 that you think, it doesn't mean it has to be worth $100,000. It's just so perfect for a specific business. And the more perfect buyers have their perfect domains, we're expanding the pie. We're reinforcing the concept of the validity and the value of these domain names to the appropriate business. And the more perfect, the more companies own their perfect domain, whatever extension that may be, the better off we are as an industry, period, full stop. Like, if everybody's out there and they're operating on, subpar domains, everybody thinks, well, why do I need a subpar domain? It's like the biggest comeback that I still get today, which I think is so foolish, is like, well, Google did a good job and they're on google.com, right? It's like, it's the exception, not the rule. They have the CIA and billions of dollars behind them.
Well, and that's you said it right there. They were first, they were user friendly, and they had billions of dollars behind them. And most brands just don't have that. Most end users don't have that. Anywhere from five. Go ahead.
I didn't want to interrupt you, but I'm going to lose my thought. And it was the reason I interrupted you in the first place. Is you said that everybody should be out there contacting end users with their domains, outbound selling. That I absolutely don't agree with. And it's not just for job security that I don't agree with that. It's literally, in my experience, 99% of the people in this industry are not qualified to be doing outbound sales, number one. And number two, if everybody out there is doing outbound sales on really crappy domains, you kind of dilute the market and hurt the market, because then when you have somebody who's professional about it, going out there and putting the perfect domain in front of the perfect buyer, they might not even open that email because they're tired of getting solicited by shitty domains or whatever, right? So it makes our job harder.
I fully agree with that. I'll give you that. And what I mean by, everybody should be outbounding their names, I'll backtrack a couple steps. Get a professional to look at your names first. Make sure that your portfolio is worth outbounding. I mean, I'm on these, this morning, sort of every morning I get up and I check Facebook or LinkedIn, all of these different things. And you'll see domains for sale, or, there's Facebook groups of domains for sale. And I look at them, and now I'll admit I'm probably a little bit spoiled by looking at some of the domains and outbounding some of the names that I have. But when I look at a name and they want, submit reasonable offers only, and the name is worth hand reg at best, those are the people like, you should have had somebody take a look at this first. You should have asked, what exactly is it that you're looking for? What is your goal with it? Which I think, just tying in Sherpa is a great review. People can start to sort of see what a good domain name is, what a great domain name is, and what a superb domain name is.
And maybe I think your statement is valid if you just change it from the person to say quality domain. Every quality domain deserves to be outbound brokered and, and I'm sure.
Deserves is okay, but don't go further than deserves, because quality is a very tricky word.
Drew's like, my email inbox is going to blow up.
Yeah, listen, I dare any of you to come and just spend a day with me and just look at the volume of email that I'm dealing with. And I can tell you that the vast majority of folks don't have quality domains and don't know how to identify quality domains, unfortunately.
But Jebidiah, this must be like...
Because GoDaddy has quality names. GoDaddy's got phenomenal names. And so I want to understand two things, and then Tess probably has more things she wants to understand. But the things I want to understand is, one, what was the thought process leading up to this? Not yours, but GoDaddy's, right? Because whatever, I've got.
Good question. Next.
And then secondly is, what's your approach? You come in, you've got, how big is the portfolio? It's like over 100, a couple 100,000 names, 200, 300.
Yeah, what I work on, there's
it's a
small
selection of those.
That, but yeah, I think the portfolio is very large. So
you've got hundreds of thousands of names to sort of choose from, right? It's like, so
you're like in the biggest domainers playground ever, and you're the only guy in there.
Only one plane, yeah.
That's really, really cool. Okay, so yeah, how did it
but I have to come in and buy the names from GoDaddy and then go sell them. Yeah. But we don't even go sell them, actually. So we just buy them and let the money die.
Well, I think, so to answer your questions, I think the first thing, the thought process was, hundreds, thousands of domain names that are too good to just die. They're too good to just sit there and to wait and to wait and to wait. And the market is such, while I don't necessarily agree with instant liquidity for almost any domain name, it is such where the playing field for domain names is not equal. And I think GoDaddy's
what do you mean by that?
I think that if you there's a sort of like you were saying, the client that you had where like, well, Google did fine with a name that nobody had ever heard of. That seems to be sort of a sentiment in different segments of our industry. Like you'll work with, IT guys or SEO consultants that say, I don't care what name you bring me, I will get you to the first page. I will create your brand. I will do this stuff. And 10 minutes into it, the end user, the owner of that business understands that getting there is now writing checks. Whereas they could have started with writing one probably larger check to start, but it's instant brand recognition. It's instant straight to their category that they want or to the branding that they want. There isn't this, well, let's try and tie this to this and this will make sense here. It's an overall theme right up front. And so when you have domain names that fit that category, and I really believe that almost every domain name that we work on, which is great, fits a category or niche for a specific person, they need to be aware of that domain. And GoDaddy felt the same way. Like there just has to be somebody who will call and tell the dental office, hey, did you know that perfectsmile.com is available? And that dentist office is like, that's our brand. And it's like, I know you're on a really crappy domain name. This is available, and your IT guy, your web guy isn't giving you this information. Let me tell you about it.
And this seems to be more of a strategic and positioning approach from GoDaddy. This is not GoDaddy's like, oh, we spent all this money on this portfolio, we gotta make a 10x on it. It seems like the pricing is not expected to be extremely high. And the idea is that GoDaddy can serve that dentist's office needs, not only with their domain name, but now that we have this relationship and we've freed you from your SEO guy who we all know doesn't answer your phone calls, and you know, you're terrified if he dies that your
everything
site will just magically disappear. And that's really, I mean, GoDaddy, what, 80% of GoDaddy's business is small business owners, right?
Yeah. And that, I mean, that's the thing, like GoDaddy it's a much larger play than just a domain name sale. You know, us being in the industry, us being brokers or whatnot, we tend to focus on that domain sale. Well, you know, GoDaddy is, okay, so we have a domain. What's next? What's next? What's next? How can we service our clients the best possible way? And that starts with a great domain name. And that's where the reality of what I do comes into play, is putting that great domain name, that first step, the perfect first step in front of that end user, and making it work for them. So that's where we sit with that.
I have my next question.
Okay.
So, you know, as a broker, brokering third-party names, we have to be very cognizant of trademarks and making sure, you know, just basic due diligence. Is, you know, most of what we're brokering is pure generic. It's you know, oneword.com, 2 letters, 3 letters. Right. But there are cases where it's a gray area, okay? And, you know, you're not necessarily brokering third-party names, but you're still brokering, you know, a portfolio of names. What's your approach to that? How do you say, well, you used Perfect Smile before, and I bet there's probably 1,000 trademarks for Perfect Smile. Now, you know, like you and me, more informed about domains than the end user is. And so we know that, like, okay, GoDaddy's out there buying up portfolios of thousands of names at a time. They're not cherry picking and saying, oh, Perfect Smile, that's a trademark infringing domain. Let's buy that because we'll sell it to them. Right?
Okay.
It's bulk. It's just
I'm going to go first in answering. So none of us are legally trained or liable, right? We all specialize in domain names, not in trademarks or the law. But a lot of domainers have this concern or experience where if you're the first one to reach out, like say Perfect Smile is a trademark, and if Perfect Smile trademark holder reaches out and says, hey, you own perfectsmile.com, I want that, then you're like in a safe zone. But if you reach out to them first, then you can get in legal trouble for then you have it in bad faith or something. So this is not a legal conversation, but more of the boogeyman that every domain owner is vaguely aware of and scared of. Right. And so with that approach, now, you know, GoDaddy has a legal team, unlike, you know, most domain investors. But yeah, that is.
So I'm not.
That's a great question.
Advice. I just want to know sort of more high level, your personal. You're looking at this list of names. You know, there's going to be names where, you know, you've got endless choices, right? So you're not going to go. You're not going to go down a road that's going to maybe be slippery if you've got perfectly good roads. Yeah, and
I usually don't. I mean, bottom line is, like, you know, I'll throw the caveat out there too. I'm not an attorney. This is not legal advice. Yeah. Certainly, you know, if you have questions, seek. You know, there's some amazing trademark attorneys and IP attorneys that we all know. So seek counsel there. What I will do, let's use Perfect Smile as an example, just because we're talking about it. I'll do, you know, and it sort of ties into what my process is. I'll do a search of people who are using that term, period. And, you know, if they're using that term, and I do, you know, due diligence, and I check the trademark office, and I'm not seeing something that, a mark specifically to the words or something along those lines, I'll reach out to, the dentist office that is already branded Perfect Smile and just has a bad domain. Now, I have the luxury of I can do something like that and spend a half hour or whatnot on 10 different entities and then move on.
Yeah.
I don't have to drill to find
drill.
To find that buyer for that name. I can move on, but I've now put that domain name in front of 10, 15, 20 clients that it's relevant to. And then they've probably done some of their research. Now, if they have questions of me about trademarks or whatever, I'll do the same thing that I just said here on the show. You seek legal counsel, the domain name, and that's it.
So you just reach out on the domains, and if somebody says, hey, I have a trademark on that, which certainly they might, and so might 49 other people, or maybe the domain was registered before the trademark. So it's really basically doesn't have to be on your radar at all. Is what
I mean, and I have the luxury, like Tess said, we have a legal team. If they reach out and say, hey, that's our trademark, we're going to sue you. Cool. Talk to them. Next domain. I move on.
Next.
Next. So, but, it goes back to, if you're going to outbound any name, period. And if it's a quality domain name, if it's a relevant or generic domain name, way back when, Updated Tees came out, I sold sex.live and porn.live. Both of those words have trademarks on them. Most people don't know that, but they're so generic that good. Yeah. The word sex has a German trademark on it, if I remember.
German.
And the word porn had another trademark from somewhere. So those words, the word, if I remember correctly, the word love has a trademark on it. So
I'm sure it has thousands, but it's you can't trademark love for like the generic meaning of love.
Right.
So you could totally trademark, like I could create a brand of ice cream and call it porn, and I can get a trademark for porn selling ice cream.
Right.
So it really comes down to use.
And
I kind of feel like maybe somebody's going to do that now. That sounds really good.
Hey,
but you gotta, if you're gonna, again, I have the luxury of the portfolio that I have, but if you're gonna outbound your names or a third party name, for God's sake, do a tiny bit of research first. Don't be that guy. Don't, if you have yellowpage.com, don't be reaching out to Yellow Pages because you're done. That's over. First off, you shouldn't be brokering that name, in my opinion.
No.
Secondly, be smart about what you're doing. And just because, actually, if you don't mind, there was a comment on the last show that we did about how we missed a lot of things in the portfolio because they were brands or they were trends. And what stuck out to me is I knew that. I knew they were brands. I knew they were trends. That's one end buyer. That's it. And then, so that domain name only has one end buyer. If you're brokering a domain name like yellowpage.com, that has one end buyer and you're not getting anything for it. So being smart about the portfolio, being smart about your research before you start doing outreach, that's what, trademarks are. That's what's going to save you from stuff like that. So,
that's very interesting. And makes me think too, what's the average age of the domains in this portfolio?
Good question.
They're all old, right?
I bet it.
Yeah,
most of the. I bet it's. If I had to just take a wild guess, my guess would be 18 years, maybe 19. I bet the average year of registration would be around 2000.
Okay. Yeah, and that makes a difference too from that perspective. Let's talk about the market. What are you seeing? What are you hearing? What are you sensing? You must get so much feedback from small businesses and from much larger end users. Actually, how much are you reaching out to small businesses and how much are you reaching out to like the Hearst Corp and, big Fortune 100, 500, big entities?
It depends on the domain name, but, I would say medium to to slightly larger companies is about 85% of what I do.
Okay. All right.
And that's because most of those companies, they have that 3-word.com, or they have a hyphenated name, or they have the word "the" because at the time the other domain name wasn't available.
Yeah, and that's GoDaddy's target market for this entire approach.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the market feedback you're basically getting from the average Joe or someone with a small IT team. What are the market trends that you're seeing today? What are the evolving domain value perceptions that you're encountering?
I think that the perception of high quality domain names is growing a little bit. I think that most people involved in technology now, whether or not it's their IT guy or their SEO guy or whoever it may be working with these, medium to larger businesses, understand the power of the domain name, understand what it is to be or to have that name. So I think that they're, are they running with wallets open? No, but are they willing to have that conversation? Absolutely. And, sometimes it's just not a budget fit, or it's, sometimes it's just not a perfect fit. I've gotten feedback on a couple of domain names where it's like, how dare you reach out to my company with a, $50,000 domain name? Do you know what we make each year? And it's like, no, I don't, but I know what you could be making each year.
Yeah.
Math is there. So it's, I don't care if you're a Fortune 500 company or a mom and pop shop down the street. If your domain name sucks and your conversion sucks and you're not getting the recognition that you deserve off of your name, you can be doing better. And that's where, those conversations go. So I think, to answer the question, I think that market trend wise, I think people are understanding the power of domain names again. I think brandables will always have their place, but and it may just be the niche that I've fallen in over the last, near decade now, but I think keyword domain names are significantly on the rise. I see a lot of companies, a lot of end users who are willing to take their budget to the next step to get that keyword relevant domain name. And they may be a brand as well. They may have a brandable domain name, but they're going to be marketed off of the keyword domain. And then just in it's stuff that I've mentioned before too, but market trends, I think that there is a slight misconception from our industry of an uneducated end user. Now, are they as smart, smart is a relative term, but are they as aware or as informed about domain names as us? Probably not, but they're online every day, just like we are. They are using search tools every day, just like we do. They use voice recognition like we do every single day. So their interaction is slightly different than ours, which is very important to realize when you're brokering names. Like, what is your perception to how you want to be seen? How, like one of the questions I've always asked when I was selling updated domains was, what is it that somebody searches to find you? If your brand name is this, I don't know what that means. I don't know who that is. I have no idea what that is. But if somebody's doing a search for you, what is that? And people are starting to actually understand that. And they're starting to understand that, if I'm looking for a home loan, I'm going to search for a home loan. If I'm looking for an accident attorney, I'm going to search for an accident attorney. If I'm looking we're coming up on the Women's World Cup again, and I think I've talked about these domains before. If I'm looking for live soccer, I'm going to search live soccer. So like that interaction between search interface and domain name is starting, I think that gap is starting to close by end users. But again, that could be my perception simply because I specialize in keyword domains and keyword updated extensions. But
okay.
I'm not sure I necessarily subscribe to that. I mean, in my experience, people are not that informed about domain names. So we're negotiating right now. It's a very interesting case. We've got a 4-letter.com domain that's seemingly more or less a random 4-string. Okay, a 4-letter.com. However, a company, the owners had it for many years. a company came along and they branded on this 4-letter string. They're using the .co. The company has raised tens of millions of dollars. It's an extremely fast-growing and very technically important startup. And they're backed by some of the most important companies in the world. And they also do a tremendous amount of business with the Department of Defense and every single one of the 3-letter acronym agencies that are related. And
are they worried about email bleed?
Well, and so this is the thing. So this is the point I was trying to make as just one example of the lack of understanding. Is it's not just about branding. As important as brand is, it's super important. It's been the focus of all of our conversations for many, many years. And what I'm finding is we probably need to start shifting some portion of our conversation to the importance of domain names for security. Because right now, boardrooms, what they're willing to open up their pocketbooks for and spend money on is security, because it's a hot button issue. They're being forced by vendors and customers and regulators to button up cybersecurity. And, and a breach of security can cost them billions. And most of the effective solutions for making a safe network, a safe environment, digital environment for your company, these are very expensive things and they're ongoing costs, and it's heavy lifting. And so to me, I look at a domain and I'd say, well, it's kind of like, the low-hanging fruit. It's like if you don't have the exactmatch.com domain name for your brand, regardless of the brand itself, like if you want to make a brand out of a new GTLD or an updated TLD, that's great. I think some of them make amazing brands, but this isn't a brand conversation. It's about security. And fact is, email is being sent to that .com that your company doesn't own, and there is extremely sensitive information there. And more than half of the emails that I see on these domains where people have set up catch-all emails, more than half are from employees in the company themselves. So if it's employees in your company are sending emails to the wrong domain, then what about your customers? What about your vendors? What about your investors? So I think that's one very poignant example of the lack of education about domains. People have kind of gotten the impression that domains are like makeup. It's like I can go out natural or I can throw out some lipstick, and the lipstick isn't going to get me that much further, right? It's incremental, but that's not true. Yes. Having the best version domain for your company, for your brand, whatever extension that might be, it's critical. It's mission critical. It's not just putting lipstick on. It's mission critical. You can't leave home without your shoes.
Well, and I think what you're talking, especially with the security section, that's high school education for an elementary world. You know what I mean? That's taking the use of the domain name for your medium to large business to the next level. That particular company has a tremendous need for brand security. I mean, that it's something like that is almost unparalleled. Something like HIPAA or something like that. That's an education that as a broker or as the domain industry, I think we do a horrible job of explaining that step or that importance. But where I'm seeing that growth in education is one step below that. Like, what do I need to be online? Like, we're still, you're still talking to companies who go out and buy domain names that are 75 characters long. Because like, hey, I was told at some point.
No, you better not. You can't be 64.
Okay, so 60. They're at 63 characters, and they got the short version. And it's because they were told they have to get their location, what they do, their name, their zip code. They have to put all of that in their domain name, but their brand is something completely different. You know what I mean? So what you're talking about is absolutely critical, and I fully agree that there are time and place for domain names. where the purchase of that domain name, whether or not it has to do with your branding, is more important to security or brand protection than it is to your branding. But what, my specialty is, or that niche that I'm in, or that segment of the market that I'm in, it's still that level of taking a mediocre to a great domain name. And then the good part is that leads to that security question. Hey, by upgrading your domain name, there's no longer going to be brand confusion. There's no longer going to be issues where, email or something like that, if they're on a .com. When it comes to the updated extensions, most of these brands are being built from scratch as complete online entities. So your initial email is built through the website. So it's very rare that you're going to have some significant bleed because it's already there. It's built into how you interacted originally.
And Perfect Smile, the dentist, just doesn't care if a different dentist gets their email.
Yeah, like one or two emails to a different dentist isn't going to,
Yes, no. But if you're like contracted with the Department of Defense and you don't know that.
But let me ask you something. Why, so you've got this portfolio at your disposal. Why would you be focusing on the small business? Why wouldn't you be chasing the big?
Oh, I don't focus. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't just do small business. I think you can attest to that, some of these larger deals where, I have some amazing 2-character domain names. I have some amazing, multi-million-dollar domain names, exactly, that are up there. That cycle takes longer. That conversation. Yeah, for sure. So what I do is I'm working on those and backfilling with small business.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a constant
and filling, and filling in the GoDaddy strategy along the way of growing relationships with small businesses.
Yeah.
So, how do you pick? Are you monitoring? I remember when GoDaddy introduced the tool where you can see how many whois lookups there have been on your domain. Are you monitoring whois lookups, email received for inactive domains because of misinterpretation, traffic on parking? I'm sure GoDaddy is monitoring that somewhere. Are you monitoring that in relation to choosing what domains you sell, or how do you go through the process?
Yes, I do all of that, minus the email part. I know that's a trick that's out there. I don't believe we do that. My role here is, I started about 60 days ago. So what I've done is I've and I didn't get access to the full portfolio until my 59th day. You had to be on the payroll for 24 hours before they showed it to me. So the, my initial research or choices were based on market segments that I knew I had contacts in already.
Okay.
So, that's sort of the low hanging fruit to that. Then I start looking at, I'm working on some 2-character stuff right now. There are two, you take a look at how many companies can use these 2 characters, and you try and find the biggest pie. Consonant is super hot, so I'm going to try and stay away from vowel. I'm going to try and use, just basic dictionary words, which 2 letters have the most amount of words or can be used for agencies or groups or consultings or whatever it may be. So that's where I am sort of now.
Okay.
Over the next, couple of weeks and months and into years, absolutely, I'll be using every tool that's in the book for monitoring whois, monitoring traffic, seeing who's coming to the sites, who's making requests for domain names. A lot of the Namefind portfolio is listed for sale. Not all of it, but I believe not all of it, but the majority of it is listed either with make offer or an actual price point. So people make those offers, and as we all know, sometimes they may get that price today, and it's a no today, but it's a yes tomorrow.
Sure.
Or my need has changed, so I have to move forward. So,
okay.
So all of that stuff will be taken into consideration over the next, moving forward.
Okay. So is this already happening, or do you see this in the future where, say, GoDaddy says, you know what, we really want to get into the dental market, the 30-year-old sports market, I don't know, whatever, that they would have you outbound sell domains specifically in that arena, so that you're essentially a one-on-one commercial for GoDaddy to these specific niches that they want to reach?
I think it's possible. I think that's just relationship building for any business, though. We offer a service that's bigger than domain names. And if if we can have conversations with entities, whatever the vertical of marketing or consumer facing goods are, and we have significant amounts of domains or the perfect domain in that portfolio, then absolutely we want to have conversations with those decision makers. It's the same thing with anything. If you have a product that everybody needs and they don't necessarily know it, you're not necessarily going to try and one-off it all the way through. You're going to try and find those influencers, those people, exactly, that can bring it to scale faster than, even GoDaddy, its name value is ridiculous. I mean, everybody knows what GoDaddy, or everybody heard it. Except for, I will say this, and this is a little antidote, and I apologize, but when I was visiting our main office, I had an Uber driver, and she picked me up and she took me to the airport. She asked me who I work for. I said, GoDaddy. And she's like, who are they? And
wow.
I was blown away. I was like, you literally just picked me up from the office at GoDaddy, and you don't, you're in Arizona, and you didn't know.
Wow, that is shocking.
But that was the only time I've ever mentioned GoDaddy to anybody, and they didn't know. But that name recognition is huge. But at the same time, we don't have, no entity does. We don't have our hands deep into every single vertical that a domain name will touch. So having those relationships or building those relationships is extremely important.
Yeah. So it's not a current active tactic, but obviously it's one that may someday come up. So we have a little less than 10 minutes left. And I want to know, what are the topics, Jebidiah, that you want to highlight here, that you wish that people knew about your role, about the market, about trends that you're seeing?
Yeah. I think, I think my role, we sort of discussed a little bit, like, unfortunately, as of today, I'm not outbounding, individuals' domains. But I've said this publicly before, I'm happy to look at them. Please reach out. Let's talk. I've had a couple conversations since the last time I was on Sherpa with people who sent me their portfolios, and it was great to look at them because they had some really good names in there, or they had some not so great names where I'm able to give them advice. Go ahead and, these are hand-regged names. Go ahead and drop them. Take that money that you're saving and buy a better domain.
Yeah.
And here's one that fits what you're doing. So, so that's in my role there. I've also said it before, like, one of the things that I highly, highly encourage and really want people to understand is take a look. If you're brokering your domain name, or if you're outbound selling a domain name, if you're just selling a domain name in general, really evaluate who that end user is. And we sort of get into this role, I think, where we think that those end users are stupid, or they don't know, and I'm going to educate them. I'm going to tell them what they have to have. And sales doesn't work that way. And I have been successful in multiple aspects of sales, not just in domain names, but in other things that I've done, because I'm able to listen to what the end user is trying to achieve, or what the buyer is trying to achieve, and provide a solution to that. Now, it may be a domain name that you have, it may be a domain name that you can get. And that's something that I really encourage people to take a look at, because, like Drew mentioned earlier, there's nothing worse than outbound salespeople or people selling domain names that are garbage, that they know are garbage, and they're trying to force into the market as quality or premium. It gives sort of premium names a weird tinge, and it makes it look, it makes the industry look bad. And I think that we can all do better there by taking a look at that. And then just trend-wise, like I mentioned, I really do feel like a lot of people are turning towards keywords again, in conjunction with, not necessarily in replacement, but in conjunction with their current branding.
Totally. Which makes sense. It's like everybody distrusts social media. Everybody distrusts Google. And it's like, you know, if you want to drive traffic and have meaningful relationships with visitors, customers, etc., whoever it is you're trying to attract to your website, you know, it just makes sense to give them a clear, defined brand and or a clear, defined purpose or utility. So, you know, selling candles, I mean, nobody's going to be confused about who you are if you're at candles.com. I mean, it's just, you know, it's.
Or if you're selling candles at candles.for-sale. So, I mean, it makes perfect sense. And it's, you know, it doesn't, especially if it's in conjunction with, you have options.
Yeah.
You know, there are opportunity, and that's, you know.
So I'm going to drop something on. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Finish your thought.
Go ahead. No, so I think, no, that's fine. Just, you know, paying attention to trends like that with keywords. I think those values are highly increasing. And I think if you can bring them to the market in a responsible fashion, I think there's a way to have that, you know, push the industry forward and goes back to the forefront. So.
So I want to ask one final question that I have, which is, what is the best value? Okay, ready? We're gonna play a little Shark Tank here. I'm a buyer, okay, because people are convincing me about these updated TLDs. I want one really good new TLD, updated TLD, whatever you want to call it.
Okay.
Not a generic one that's like spans the dot in a meaningful way, like you know, whatever, credit.cards type of thing. So tell me the best value, not the best domain, but the best value that you think you've got right now that you could sell to me on this show right here and now in the next 30 seconds.
Best value on an updated.
Sorry, I know I just threw you onto the on the spot.
Fine. You know, so the best value to me, and I'll be honest, I'd have to double check the price because technically it's a registry owned name. But I think just in growth of market space, weed.delivery. I mean, it's brandable, it's generic. It is a trending market that thousands of companies just on doing brief research are trying to figure out how to make legal. And with the way that the cannabis industry is slowly gaining legality in every state, the next step is sort of Uber it, you know, hey.
So that's the thing is I don't agree. I had this same conversation with somebody at the registry. And it was
about that domain?
About that domain. And
Jebidiah, you know your market well.
I don't want to poo-poo the domain, but for me, it's Uber, like you said. So it's like, once this thing does develop, like right now it's immature and maybe you could find a buyer and they might utilize it. But I think that very, very, very quickly that market will mature and it's a winner take all because, you know, they can take the brand and basically franchise it to operators in each state. And so you've got a couple of key players out there. And I think that it'll be a winner take all type of situation like an Uber. Maybe there'll be two players, but it'll be branded and not, you know, it's like owning ride.share and trying to sell that to Uber. You know, rideshare is the market, but Uber and Lyft don't care. They're household names. And I think that will be the case for weed delivery as that market matures.
All right. Well, I think you cheated throwing him on the spot so bad. But I love Jebidiah. You know, everything that the way that you present yourself is always so calm and centered. And I think that buyers hear that. And I also respect so much how you know your market. Even Drew, you knew what name to discuss at least with him, right, you know, on the spot, totally unexpected. I'm sorry that we have to go. I wish that we could talk forever. But I know we will have you on the show like 100 more times.
Yeah. You know, I think you know, in a couple of months we circle back on the same show and say, you know, and see what's changed, see what's, see where you're making traction. And,
yeah, I want specifics, what's sold.
Where you carved out.
Yeah. Are you going to be able to share sale prices?
That is, mostly right now we're working on ranges.
Okay. All right.
I'm a firm believer that numbers need to be out there. It's how the market moves forward. And I'm also a firm believer that if that stuff isn't public, that there's too many questions. So
yeah, it's part of the value. Oh, that's a good point too on the transparency. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm very adamant that that's part of my role. And, GoDaddy has agreed to most of my demands on that. So we're getting there. But with the successes that we've already had in just 60 days and moving forward, I think it'll become more transparent. And, we're a publicly traded company, so there are going to be some things that just can't necessarily be released.
Sure.
But at the same time, it's the domain industry and everybody needs to know what's going on.
Yeah.
So.
Well, this is a huge statement by GoDaddy, and I'm really excited that you were the one who they brought in for it. It's just fantastic. You belong here, and you are going to make some big waves.
Appreciate that.
I see my next call is trying to come on. Sorry. But thank you. Come again. We'll see you soon, Jebidiah.
Thank you for having me. It's good seeing you.
Thanks, Jebidiah.
Yeah, you too. All right. Bye, guys. Bye, Drew.
Bye.